All right, folks, get ready for a deep dive. We've got a big one today. Manchester United facing off against Brentford. It's a matchup with more history than you might think, and we're going beyond the headlines. You guys wanted the inside scoop on this one, and lucky for you, we've got the Tips Moto supercomputer cranking out some fascinating insights for this match.
And let me tell you, this isn't just another walk in the park for Manchester United. Two straight 3-0 losses at home have put Ten Hag in a tough spot, and the pressure is on.
Yeah, losing to Tottenham and then Liverpool at Old Trafford, that's got to sting.
It does. And what's wild is the Tips Moto XG model, the one that analyzes shot quality and all that, well, it suggests that Man U's goal difference, which is already rough, should be even worse.
Hold on, so they're actually scoring even less than the stats say they should be.
Exactly. And conceding more, too. It's a head-scratcher. They're underperforming on both ends of the pitch.
You'd expect a club like Manchester United, with their history, to be an offensive powerhouse. But they're only averaging 0.7 goals a game in the league. That's not great.
Nope. And while that 7-0 EFL Cup win against Barnsley might offer a glimmer of hope,
They actually managed to score 7 goals. Color me surprised.
well, let's not get carried away. Barnsley and, say, Liverpool are different beasts. The real test is how Man U performs against the top teams, and right now, they're not cutting it.
So let's talk about their opponents this time around. Brentford. They're sitting pretty in 10th place, which is a solid start to the season. But here's where the Tips Moto data gets interesting.
Yeah, their away form is a different story altogether. 3 away games, 3 losses. Last time they had a start like that on the road was back in the 61-62 season.
Ouch. That's going way back.
To put it in perspective, Brentford's last league win at Old Trafford, get this, 1937. Talk about a historical disadvantage.
1937. Okay, now that's just crazy. But didn't Brentford give Man U a run for their money last time they met?
They did indeed. Brentford walked away with the solid 4-0 victory at their home turf, the G-Tech Community Stadium. Definitely a wake-up call for Ten Hag and proof that Brentford can punch above their weight.
Talk about flipping the script. Suddenly those historical stats don't seem so reassuring for Man U. So how does the Tips Moto supercomputer factor all this in?
Well, that's the beauty of Tips Moto. It cuts through the noise and gives us a data-driven prediction.
All right, enough of the suspense. Lay it on us. What's the Tips Moto prediction for this match?
Drumroll, please. Tips Moto, after crunching over 300 data points, gives Manchester United a 54.3% chance of winning this one.
So they are the favorites. But 54.3%, that's not exactly a landslide.
Not at all. There's a decent chance of a draw, sitting at 22.2%. And get this.
Don't leave us hanging.
Brentford has a 23.5% chance of pulling off another upset.
Wow. This is why we love Tips Moto. It's not just about who should win based on reputation, but who actually has the statistical edge. It's all about those data-driven insights.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, let's dig into some fascinating Tips Moto players to watch data.
Oh yeah, this is where the real tactical analysis comes in, and Tips Moto gave us some juicy details to work with, starting with Brentford's Bryan Mbeumo. This guy's on fire right now. 6 goals in his last 7 Premier League appearances. Scoring in his last 3 games straight. Talk about a hot streak.
He's been unstoppable. And get this, if Mbeumo scores or gets an assist in this match, he'll be the first Brentford player ever to hit 50 Premier League goal involvement.
50 goal involvements. That's incredible. Brentford could have a history maker on their hands. All right, so we've got Mbeumo, a man on a mission to rewrite the record books. What about Manchester United? Who does Tips Moto highlight for them?
This is where it gets interesting. Tips Moto flagged Christian Eriksen as a key player for Man U.
Really? Because from what I've seen, Eriksen's been pretty quiet this season.
That's the thing, the data tells a different story.
You're saying there's more to Eriksen's season than meets the eye? Okay, I'm intrigued.
Way more. Despite some criticism, he's been quietly impactful in their attack. Over his last 5 games, across all competitions, Eriksen's been involved in 3 goals and 3 assists.
No way. I would have never guessed he had that kind of influence.
And here's a fun fact. The only Manchester United player with more goal involvements than Eriksen this season is Alejandro Garnacho.
Wow. Especially with all the buzz surrounding Garnacho's breakout year, it really puts Eriksen's contributions into perspective. Okay, so we've got Mbeumo chasing a Brentford record and Eriksen quietly leading Manchester United's attack. But what about the rest of the squads? Who's in, who's out, and how might that affect the game?
Time to talk team news, because those injury updates always shake things up, and this match is no exception.
Hit us with it. Who's fit, who's out, and who's questionable? Give us the rundown.
Let's start with Brentford. They actually got some good news. Matthias Jensen, their midfielder who's been out with a calf injury, he could be back in action. Big boost for their midfield.
That's what every manager wants to hear. But what about on the flip side? Any doubts for Brentford?
Mikkel Damsgaard is a question mark. He had to pull out of international duty, so it's unclear whether he'll be ready for the match.
The international break strikes again. Always a gamble when your players are off representing their countries. Okay, so Jensen's a maybe, Damsgaard's a question mark. What about their long-term injuries? Any changes there?
Nope, still the same. Hickey, Henry, Wissa, and Thiago are all still sidelined. Honestly, though, Manchester United has it worse when it comes to injuries. Their injury list is getting long.
Yeah, their injury woes are no secret. Give us the rundown on who's still out and who might make a surprising return for Manchester United.
All right, so first, the bad news. Kobbie Mainoo, their young midfielder, he's out for a while, picked up an injury on international duty.
Tough break for the youngster, especially after his strong start to the season. Okay, Mainoo's out. What's the latest on Ugarte? Is he good to go or still nursing that hamstring?
Ugarte's a game-time decision, unfortunately. Picked up a hamstring problem playing for Uruguay, so he'll have to go through a late fitness test.
Hamstring injuries are tricky. Risking him in a big match like this is a tough call for any manager. So Ugarte's a maybe. What about their long-term absentees, Malacia, Shaw, Maguire, Mount? Any chance we see them on the pitch?
Afraid not. This match is too soon for them. They're still a few weeks away from being match fit.
It's like they're stuck in an injury time warp over there. But hey, it's not all bad news for Manchester United fans. There are some positive updates, right?
Right. Garnacho and Diallo, who both withdrew from their international squads, they're back in contention. Huge boost for their attack.
Fantastic news. Especially with Garnacho playing so well lately. Having him back adds some much-needed firepower. Any other good news for Manchester United?
Yes, actually. Nusayr Mazraoui is fit. Remarkable recovery considering he had that heart procedure less than 2 weeks ago.
Wow, that is remarkable. To be back so soon after a heart procedure is a testament to his determination. Okay, so we've got Brentford with a nearly full squad and Manchester United with a mix of returning players and ongoing absences. How do you think these injuries, especially for Man U, might impact the game?
Now that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Let's break it all down after a quick break.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we're breaking down all the angles of this Manchester United-Brentford clash. For the break, we were talking about the team news, and yeah, both sides have some injury puzzles to solve.
Manchester United's defense especially? Mazraoui coming back is huge, but throwing him in after a heart procedure, Ten Hag has to be careful there.
Absolutely. Rushing him back could do more harm than good. But at least their attack's looking more dangerous with Garnacho and Diallo back. They bring that speed and creativity that's been missing. Speaking of which, let's talk about the history between these two at Old Trafford. Man, you and you have had Brentford's number for a while.
To say the least. 5 straight home wins for Manchester United, outscoring Brentford 13-2 over those matches. Tough look for Brentford on paper.
Makes you wonder how Brentford can turn things around.
You can't ignore their last meeting at the G-Tech Community Stadium, though.
Brentford fans are probably still celebrating that one.
It was a statement 4-0 Brentford. Sent a message to the whole Premier League that they're not to be messed with. Showed some cracks in Ten Hag's tactics, and proved that history doesn't mean everything.
In football, like in life, anything can happen.
Yeah.
So where do we land on this one? We've got Tips Moto leaning towards a Manchester United win, but it's close. We've got those lopsided head-to-head records. It's a real nail-biter.
That's football for you. Analyze all the stats you want, but sometimes comes down to who wants it more on the day.
And that's where Tips Moto comes in, right? Those data-driven insights help us make sense of it all.
Speaking of which, the Tips Moto betting tips are pointing towards a high-scoring match. Over 2.5 goals is their prediction.
Over 2.5 goals. Interesting. More of an attacking game than people might expect. Bit of a gamble for Ten Hag, but could be the key to unlocking Brentford's defense.
Definitely possible. And if you're feeling lucky, Tips Moto likes Mbeumo and Rashford for first goal scorer.
Always love a good wager. Responsibly, of course. All right, before we wrap up, what's the big question you're asking heading into this match?
Can Manchester United's attack finally find their rhythm against a Brentford team that's been defensively solid at home, but less so on the road? That's what I'm watching for.
There you have it. That's the question that'll be answered on the pitch. For everyone watching, don't forget to check out Tips Moto for all the latest predictions, odds, and expert analysis. They've got you covered. Because with Tips Moto, you're always ahead of the game.